Hello, my friends. It's Tuesday, October 28th, 2025, and I'm your host, Radical Russ Belville, your Red State refugee. And welcome to the Radical Russ Show, your home for pothead political punditry, coming to you from Rolla J Studios in Southern Oregon. On this week's smoke session, we're starving America, terrorizing neighborhoods, and murdering South Americans. Just another day in America. Trump raises the East Wing to fortify his bunker. Graham Platner lies about his Nazi tattoo. Republicans continue the Epstein government shutdown. The sports world is rocked by an inevitable mafia cheating scandal. California top cop commutes from his Idaho home, and my radical rant on how one nation under God was bound to become fascist. But before we get to all the serious political stuff, we've got time for 3 quick hits. My first quick hit is for this woman named Carrie Ann Ross, and it comes through Blue Sky with a picture of her in her hunting garb holding the carcass of a beautiful, large mountain lion that she killed. Another trophy hunter. And every time I see one of these trophy hunters, I always want to have a conversation like this. Hey, what's with the dead lion? Well, I killed him. Wow! Did he attack you? Well, no, I hunted him. Oh, still, killing a lion with your bare hands, that's impressive. What? No. A knife? Well, I shot him, of course. You shot him from a distance? Yeah. And he wasn't threatening you? Right. And you brag about this? Quick hit number 2 from the valedictorian of Mar-A-Lago, MENSA.
They have Jasmine Crockett, a low IQ person. They have AOC's low IQ. You give her an IQ test, have her pass like the exams that I decided to take when I was at Walter Reed. Those are very hard, they're really aptitude tests, I guess, in a certain way, but they're cognitive tests. Let AOC go against Trump. Let Jasmine go against Trump. I don't think Jasmine, the first couple of questions are easy. A tiger, an elephant, a giraffe, you know. When you get up to about 5 or 6, and then when you get up to 10 and 20 and 25, they couldn't come close to answering any of those questions.
You know what? It's about time that we actually called him out on this, calling all these black women, women of color like AOC, low IQ. AOC, Jasmine Crockett, Tish James, Kamala Harris, whoever else they can get together, all of them ought to make a video that says, Donald Trump, we're sick of you calling black women low IQ. We hereby challenge you to an IQ test. That's right. We're all going to take an IQ test, Donald, and we're going to post it at lowiqindividuals.com. And then we'll put a counter up there for how many days it's been since you've been too chicken to take a certified IQ test. Now, we're not going to let you have Dr. Ronnie Jackson or one of your MAGA acolytes administer the giraffe, bird, elephant test to you at Walter Reed. No, we're talking an actual MENSA certified IQ test. Come on, Donald, or are you too chicken to get beaten by a bunch of women? Interesting chart came across my Blue Sky feed this week. It's the official results of the 2024 Presidential Greatness Project Expert Survey. They asked a bunch of academics, historians, and such their opinions on various aspects of presidents, the 45 men who have been president of the United States, and had a system scoring various categories and so forth. Don't want to get into the weeds on that. Basically, they came up with these rankings on a score of 1 to 100. And being that there's 45 presidents, you can kind of divide it into thirds. First 15 presidents, we could say are good presidents. And then the middle 15 were our meh presidents. They're all right. And then our last 15 would be the bad presidents. So, at the top of the list of the good presidents is Abraham Lincoln with a score of 93.87. FDR follows with 90.83, and George Washington third with 90.32. And from that point on, the presidents get down into the 70s and the 60s. So, I went and found all the presidents who've been president during my lifetime. And it turns out there have been 6 Democrats. I've been alive since LBJ, barely. Very tail end of LBJ. Through Trump 2. There have been 5 Democrats and 6 Republicans in that time. 5 of the 6 Democrats are in the good third. Barack Obama at 7th, LBJ at 9th, Bill Clinton at 12th, Joe Biden at 14th. Only one Democratic president is in the middle range. Meh. That's Jimmy Carter at 54.26. He turned out number 22nd. Then, when we look at the Republican presidents, of the 6 of them, 3 of them are in the bottom third. 3 of them are the worst presidents. 3 of them are meh. The best of the meh is Ronald Reagan, who came in at 16th. That's right, 2 spots below Joe Biden. George H.W. Bush came in at 19th. Gerald Ford came in at 27th. Well, there's your meh presidents. And for your bad presidents, George Bush W came in at 32nd with a score of 40.43. Richard Nixon came in 35th with a score of 36.41. And you knew it was coming. Donald Trump comes in dead last, 45th, with a score of 10.92. He's beaten by James Buchanan at 16.71 and Andrew Johnson at 21.56. You know you're in bad shape when Andrew Johnson gets double your score in a presidential survey. Our main story this week is, well, everything. The wholesale destruction of the United States of America, its Constitution, and most of its people that don't have 9 figures in their bank account. Where do we start? Well, for one, I think that this November is going to be the month that white people finally understand the fascism that most of the rest of America has been living under for years. You may or may not know that I reported on the drug war for about 15 years. I worked for Normal and was a blogger before that and a podcaster after that, but generally my beat was covering the war on certain American citizens with non-pharmaceutical, non-alcoholic, tobacco-free drugs. So, when I see these reports of people being so shocked that ICE is rappelling from helicopters and rousting an entire apartment building full of people and holding kids in zip ties outside in the cold in their pajamas, I can only think back to how I already reported that story about a decade ago, except it was on a drug raid warrant, so nobody really considered it fascism at that time. Oh, they're druggies. Their kids deserve to be outside in zip ties. I've seen people apoplectic about ICE rousting people in Home Depots and in parking lots just for the color of their skin or the fact that they're speaking Spanish or they have an accent, tackling them, brutalizing them. Can't help but think, I heard that story before too, except it was New York City stop and frisk, and it was black guys who supposedly smelled like weed. But again, since it was drugs, nobody dared call it fascism. Oh, they're just druggies. Got to go after the druggies. So now, as this fascism comes to America and we have Donald Trump shutting down SNAP benefits and his lackeys online telling us to get off our, quote, ghetto asses and get jobs and not be lazy, not realizing that a large proportion of the people that are relying on SNAP benefits work full time, that SNAP benefits are a subsidy to corporations like Walmart, corporations like Amazon, that pay their people sub-living wages, pay them wages so low that not only do they qualify for SNAP benefits, but companies like McDonald's teach their employees how to get those SNAP benefits because, again, the company doesn't pay them enough to be able to pay for multiple things like food and clothing and shelter. So these SNAP benefits are going to run out here first of the month. And a whole lot of white Americans are going to learn that a lot of their neighbors who they see going to work every day, who they see putting their kids on the school bus, have been relying on SNAP. And they're going hungry. We've seen the pictures of soldiers lined up at food banks. Because again, many of our military, our enlisted soldiers, have to rely on SNAP benefits. I rely on SNAP benefits. For God's sake, I'm a hobbyist podcaster who drives anywhere between 40 to 60 hours a week for gig apps just trying to pay the bills. We're not going to have that extra money to buy food either. We're murdering people in South America, blowing up boats because the president says they're druggies. You know, that's always worked in the past, right? We can terrorize the druggies. It's a war on drugs. We got to stop them. Despite the fact that no fentanyl comes from South America, from Venezuela or Colombia, that the boats they're blowing up do not have the fuel to be able to reach the United States. They'd have to refuel numerous times to even get to the United States. Just blowing them up. But when they survive, when we have a couple survivors, these terrible druggies, we don't bring them in for questioning or trial or anything. We just let them go. They're such terrible druggies trying to destroy the United States, we have to blow them up. But if they survive, well, that's okay. We'll just let you go. Because they want to establish some precedents here. They're setting it up to see just how lawless they can be without any pushback. The same excuse they can use to blow up a boat in international waters will become the excuses they use to attack us, to blow up alleged Antifa headquarters. November is going to be the month that people start to recognize the water is boiling and the frogs are angry. We're sick of having ICE terrorizing our neighborhoods, asking our Latino citizens and immigrants where they come from, arresting American citizens, people who were born in this country, people who are citizens, people who are trying to show their papers to the ICE agents who laugh at them and ignore them and terrorize them anyway. Saw a video that came out of Idaho, Wilder, Idaho. I used to live a few miles from Wilder, Idaho. Very agricultural sector. And the video is three Hispanic kids running to their parents. The little boy explaining, I ran away. They didn't catch me. They didn't put no cuffs on me, Daddy. Little kids. Terrorized. We're seeing kids being separated from their parents, watching armed agents steal their dad away while they're screaming for him, screaming to talk to him.
And what did you see? What else happened?
I saw my mom with handcuffs him, it got me scared, and I saw soldiers, and all of the people went on the truck, and they had to cancel it, and I was shaking, and then my arms was shaking, my arms, my legs, and then I started crying.
And they're like, get out of the truck, get out of the truck. And then I was sitting down in my truck, and then they pulled out a gun, and they're like, get out of the truck. So that, of course, I'm gonna comply with a gun is to my pointed at me, and then they tackle my mom, start kicking her, punching her. Her ribs are all bruised, shoulders bruised, everything. Tell her, point a gun to her head, say that they're gonna blow her head off. And they get everyone's groups formed, like with their family. They cuff everyone besides the little kids. And I have bruises from them.
Okay. Yeah.
Every one of those videos I see could be my grandkid. I've got Hispanic grandkids. I've got Hispanic great-grandkids. Step great-grandkids. Still, I love them. And to think, you know, this, we may be able to overcome this someday. We may be able to restore democracy in this country someday, but those kids, that trauma is going to be with them the rest of their lives. That fear of authority is going to be with them the rest of their lives. We're 9 months into this. Can you believe where we're at? Can you believe we're the country that instigates a trade war with Canada because the president didn't like an ad that had Ronald Reagan in it telling the truth about tariffs? President got embarrassed, and so 10% tariff on you, Canada. We go out and protest for the No Kings rallies. 7 million people show up. 2% of the adult U.S. population shows up to protest one guy. It hurts his feelings so badly, he literally raises the east wing of the White House, tears it down, to show that he can. To show that he's got the power over all of us. This November is going to be huge, and he's already talking about having National Guard troops in California and in New Jersey for the elections they have. California's voting on Prop 50 to gerrymander their state to counteract Texas gerrymandering for Trump. New Jersey, they've got a gubernatorial election going on there where the Democrats poised to win. And Trump's talking about sending ICE there to monitor polling stations. And all I see from Gavin Newsom is, gosh, Trump's going to do this terrible thing. It's terrible. And we Californians won't stand for it. And we're going to do what? We're going to put California Highway Patrol there to repel ICE. We're going to activate the California National Guard to patrol the stations and keep people safe. We're actually going to slap some cuffs on some of these ICE thugs. Nobody wants to pull that trigger. Nobody at the state level, J.B. Pritzker, Gavin Newsom, they talk. Well, Chicagoans, take out your phones and record all this. Okay. I'll take out my phone and record these people being terrorized. How about we send some cops in there to stop them? How about we send some state troopers in there to stop them? How about we send some National Guard in there to stop them? Oh, we don't want to do that. Trump wants the conflict. Trump wants to escalate. Yeah. It's going to come down to that sooner or later. Trump's whole lifetime mantra is fuck you, make me. He wants to do what he wants to do, and if you want to stop him, you have to stop him. It's going to have to come down to that, and if California National Guard doesn't get called out, State Highway Patrol, county sheriffs, local police, to stop this brutalization of American citizens in our states, to stop this occupation of red state National Guards in blue states, if the authorities don't step up to start doing it, the worse things get, the more the people will step up to do something about it. And it won't be great folks like our own National Guards. It'll be biker gangs. It'll be inner city gangs. It'll be patriot militias. Yeah, I'm waiting for that day, because that's coming, folks. There's going to be some MAGAs out there, and they're starting to happen. Some MAGAs that realize they had one pulled over on them. I'm seeing a few tweets out there now and then that this was a psyop. Putting a Qatari Air Force base facility in the middle of Mountain Home Air Force Base. That's going to wake a few people up. Buying 4 times the Argentinian beef while our cattle ranchers are going under. That's going to get some attention. Losing our entire soybean market to Argentina. Our Chinese soybean market to Argentina. That's going to wake up some MAGAs. When the SNAP benefits run out, that's going to wake up some MAGAs. At some point, they're going to have to weigh how much they hate the brown people, how much they hate the trans people, how much they hate the ungodly people, versus how much they like to eat, versus how much they'd like to have a job, versus how much they don't want to go bankrupt. And once these MAGAs realize they were conned, there is nobody who's going to be a bigger enemy to Donald Trump than someone that feels that he got bamboozled by this slick-talking New York billionaire with his gold-plated toilets. Question is, will this happen soon enough? Will it happen soon enough for this ragtag coalition of embittered MAGAs and strong patriots and longtime Democrats? Will we be able to withstand the accumulated forces of Donald Trump, who's raised the East Wing to build himself a new fortified bunker? That's where the presidential bunker is, by the way, is under the East Wing. This ain't just $350 million for a big empty room with a bunch of gold plating, some chandeliers. He's fortifying a bunker. All the other billionaires are doing it. Zuckerberg, Bezos, they're all building bunkers. They know that we're fucked for climate change. They know that water wars and mass migration are coming. They're ready to ride it out. And hell, Trump, he knows he ain't got another decade on this planet anyway. What's he got to lose? It's time we all got serious about this. Started pushing back sooner rather than later. For our national story, I want to talk a little bit more about this raising of the White House's East Wing, clearly done as a temper tantrum from the No Kings rally, following his AI video. This was something. Trump's AI video with in a jet that says King Trump. And we know it's an AI video because Donald Trump was able to fit in a cockpit. So we know right away that it's fake, right? Donald Trump in a video that says King Trump on the plane. He's in the plane wearing a crown. And then the other part that cracks me up is his little air mask is not over his nose, and it's kind of small. It's more like a chin strap. And then he flies that plane over the No Kings protesters and dumps loads of shit all over the protesters. Ha, 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 ha. He really owned the libs. Then they tried to talk to Mike Johnson about this. What? Oh, I haven't seen it. Oh, well, the president uses satire. Ha, ha, he was trying to make a point. Yeah, what point was that, Mike? What was the point of dropping shit on peaceful protesters? What point was made? And the other thing that's pretty funny about it is, in making the video, the crowds that he's dumping shit on are huge crowds. Kind of, yeah, like you know that people really, really hate you. But that wasn't enough. Wasn't enough to shit all over America. He also had to destroy the People's House. They already destroyed the Rose Garden, paved it over, make it look like some patio at a La Quinta. Now he's raised the East Wing of the White House, which they said it wouldn't touch the White House, wouldn't touch that, wouldn't touch the walls. We love the White House. No, he raised it. Destroyed the whole thing. And we don't know, were any of the possessions inside the East Wing, any of the memorabilia in there saved? We don't know. Then he carts away all of this destruction near some golf course. Was there asbestos in that? Any hazardous chemicals going on there being leaked out? Do we know? Nah. No idea. We don't know. Don't care. But in addition to destroying the White House, so he destroys the White House, and then all the MAGA talking heads get out there on the shows to try to paint this as just another renovation. Well, you know, the White House has been renovated many times. Truman renovated the White House. Well, yeah, that was because at that time, the White House had been in such disrepair that it was like structurally unsound. It was unsafe. It had to be majorly remodeled at that point. And then the addition of the wings, that's adding to the White House. That's not destroying any part of it. And then they tried to make hay out of Barack Obama. Well, you know, Barack Obama, he installed a basketball court. Well, there was already a tennis court there, so it was already paved, and so he just took down the net and put up a pole with a backboard and a hoop. It's like hardly a massive renovation here, right? Anything they can do to try to normalize what was clearly a temper tantrum by Mango Mussolini there. And it wasn't just physical destruction of the White House. There was also some virtual destruction going on. And you may have missed it. You had to actually look at the White House page. So they put this White House page up there about the White House and its renovations and what the history of the White House, you could say. So they have this timeline. You scroll to the bottom of the page. There's a timeline of the history of the construction of the White House dating to the beginning, its design phase back in 1791. And so you scroll through this from left to right. It's like a little gallery, right? And okay, there's the creation of the East Wings and the West Wings, and there's Nixon's bowling alley, right? The typical things. And then as you scroll through this timeline of the renovations of the history of the building that we call the White House, there are 4 different slides that have nothing to do with the building of the White House. First one, Major Events Timeline, 1998, Bill Clinton Scandal. President Bill Clinton's affair with intern Monica Lewinsky was exposed, leading to White House perjury investigations. The Oval Office trysts fueled impeachment for obstruction. But they didn't renovate anything, right? Okay, and then there's a slide, 2012, Muslim Brotherhood visit with a prominent picture, the old picture of when Barack Obama was a senator and was wearing the Muslim head scarf and robes. 2012 Muslim Brotherhood visit. Obama hosts members of the Muslim Brotherhood, a group that promotes Islamist extremism and has ties to Hamas. The Muslim Brotherhood is designated a terrorist organization by nearly a dozen nations. But nothing to do with renovating the White House. Another slide, 2023. Cocaine discovered. During Biden's administration, a Secret Service agent discovered a small zippered plastic bag containing cocaine in the West Wing entrance lobby. Speculation has pointed to Hunter Biden, an admitted drug user. Additional evidence includes a laptop seized in 2019, which contains photos of frequent drug use alongside emails about foreign business dealings, Ukraine, China, involving his father, Joe, blah, 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 blah. And then there's a picture of Hunter Biden, looks like he's sleeping, shirtless, in a bathtub with a cigarette in his mouth. Again, nothing having to do with the renovation of the White House. And then another slide, 2023-2024, Trans Day of Visibility. The Biden-Harris administration hosts transsexuals, which, by the way, you don't call them transsexuals, but even when you do, you don't spell it with just 2 S's. There are 3. Trans, and then sexuals, not transsexuals. Anyway, at the White House in 2023, and goes on to establish the Transgender Day of Visibility on the same day as Easter Sunday in 2024. He did not establish the Transgender Day of Visibility. That had been established years before and always fell on a specific day. And it so happened that in 2024, that specific day coincided with Easter Sunday. And then the picture, of course, he's got Biden with this trans woman. And then there's another picture of the same trans woman who's topless, holding her hands over her breasts. But again, nothing to do with renovating the White House. Just 4 slides gratuitously thrown in to the White House timeline of events that happened at the White House under Democratic administrations that they can use to paint Democrats as being terrorist-loving, trans-humping, drug-taking, blowjob getters. And every time I have to do a show and I have to tell these stories and the shock I have over them, and perhaps the shock you have hearing them, I can't help but think that for a college freshman right now, this is all normal. A college freshman right now was 9 years old when Trump rode down that escalator. And Trump had been making political bleatings since around 2011 when he started the whole birther conspiracy about Barack Obama. So a college freshman thinks this is politics. This is just what they do. That Republicans are rude, arrogant, vicious assholes, and Democrats are weak, pussy technocrats. Like, I don't even know if, do younger people, does Generation Z even have the same level of shock and outrage that we do, us older folks, who can remember a time when there was polity in our politics, when it was just generally understood that both Republicans and Democrats loved America and wanted the best for America and the people who live in America and our economy and our foreign relations. We just had different ideas of how to go about it. Instead of now, where we have a Republican Party that is clearly dedicated to the singular ideal of turning America into a white Christian nationalist homeland. The Nazis have won. I can't imagine the sight of the White House right now, with the entire East Wing razed like it is, sitting in rubble. I can't imagine what it must be like to be one of the survivors, the wife or the child of one of those brave heroes of United Flight 93 on 9/11, who stormed the cockpit, risking their own lives, the lives of all the passengers on the plane, knowing that the other 3 planes had hit the World Trade Center towers and the Pentagon, fearing that their Flight 93 would be the bomb used to destroy the White House. How those survivors must feel now. That Donald Trump did to the White House what Osama bin Laden could not, because their relative stopped Flight 93 from doing what Donald Trump did. All right, time to turn to my left and see what's going on with the Democrats, and we fix our attention on the granite state of Maine, where I, like Arthur Fonzarelli before me, have to admit that I was wrong about Graham Platner. Oh my God, what an implosion we've had over there in Maine. I know you've been following this and you've probably heard all the takes on it, but I've just got to give you mine because I really stepped in it the morning we all found out that Graham Platner had a Nazi tattoo. So let me just give you the background here. So I've been supporting Graham Platner since he came out and out of nowhere and kind of represented a white working class man with all the proper progressive positions, and it was such a breath of fresh air to see someone young, someone in their 40s, who would be going up against Susan Collins, age 72, Time the Democrats turn to a new generation, raise a new group of leaders, people more in touch with what's going on in this century. So I bid it hook, line, and sinker. I was into Graham Platner. I've been promoting him here on the show as a breath of fresh air, as someone that could lead a populist movement. He got the support of Bernie Sanders, who endorsed him for his populist and more socialist leanings, I should say, looking toward workers and social safety net and so forth. But all the time that I'd been supporting Graham Platner, I'd also been paying attention to my Blue Sky feed, and I follow a lot of black voices on Blue Sky. And there were a whole lot of them out there telling me, I'm telling you, he's the next Fetterman. He's a Fetterman. I'm telling you, don't trust him. There's something up with this guy. Don't trust him. But I wasn't listening. I heard them saying this, and I just continued to promote Graham Platner. So Janet Mills then jumps into the race, the 78, 79-year-old, whatever age she is now, Janet Mills, who would make Susan Collins the young person in the race, who I also have a problem with because she's enthusiastically in support of keeping the filibuster in the Senate, which would, again, tie our hands to be able to enact any of the changes we need to make as swiftly as we need to make them to counter the rising fascism in the country and the world. Nevertheless, Janet Mills got in the race, and as soon as she got into the race, all of this opposition research starts coming out on Graham Platner, and the big story leading up to the weekend was that he'd had all these Reddit posts. He was a shit poster. Put some stuff, why don't black people tip, and how come you don't get so drunk that you don't get raped, and, you know, a bunch of other problematic things. And I was still even defending him at that point because he who has not shit posted, let them cast the first stone. Boy, I have typed all sorts of things on the internet that make me ineligible to run for any office in the land. So I understand. And I also understand having views in your 20s or your 30s that you overcome later in your 40s or your 50s. I have had a few myself. So I was still defending Graham Platner. Hey, he said these shitty things, but, you know, he's a white guy from Maine. A lot of that could be chalked up to ignorance. I mean, how many black people did he actually serve as a bartender to even come up with any stat as to how people tip? It just, and again, even as I was hearing that, defending that, you know, I was still hearing those voices online. Don't trust him. He's a Fetterman. Watch out. So that sets the tone here, because I felt like he was being attacked over these Reddit posts, and it's like, boy, that's the best you got on this guy, is that he shit posted a bunch when he was young. And I mean, the guy is former military. It's not like these guys are always the most sensitive and nuanced people. But maybe he's changed. He's come around. We believe in redemption in this country. So I get up on that morning. I forget which morning it was. The morning after the Pod Save America pod came out, where Graham Platner is showing the video of him dancing around drunk with this big skull tattoo on his chest. But I hadn't seen that video or heard anything about it. I just get up to see my Blue Sky feed go up. People saying that Graham Platner has a Nazi tattoo. Graham Platner has a Nazi tattoo. What the hell? So I scramble and I Google and I find the listing and I find the video and I watch it, but I'm watching it on my phone, like in the dark, because I'm getting up. I get up early, like 6 in the morning. It's still dark here. And I can't really, I just see this black blob on his chest on this tiny little screen of mine. I'm like, if that's a skull and bones tattoo, it's not a very good one. It just looks like a round black blob. So I go into immediate defense mode. Like, oh, come on. The guy says he was drunk with a bunch of Marines in Eastern Europe, saw a bunch of skulls up on the wall, saw one he thought was badass, had it tattooed on him. Come on. Like it's a Nazi tattoo. How would you know? You'd look up on the wall and see a whole bunch of skulls and bones. You wouldn't know that one was Nazi and one was not Nazi. I was defending him. Oh my God. The hellfire that rained down on me online immediately. One black voice out there saying, there's nothing one white man won't forgive another white man for. Another one calling me a clown, and how do you even make fun of this? And boy, it sucked. That whole day sucked for me. And I still didn't have the full picture of like what the hell was going on. And it felt like rat fucking. It felt like, here's Schumer and the DSCC and the Democratic establishment trying to find a way to tear this guy down, trying to say some skull and bones tattoo meant that he was a secret Nazi or something like that. But then I start doing more research and start hearing more about what's going on, and I start to realize that I was wrong. Really, really wrong. So I deleted my post, deleted my defenses online, and come to find out that, okay, first of all, this skull and bones is a Totenkopf, which is a specific type of skull and bones that's a larger skull with smaller bones that's tilted at a 3/4 facing angle. It's a very specific look. Most skull and bones are face on with a thin skull and long bones, right? So it didn't look anything like a pirate skull and bones, right? It's a very specific one. And it was specific to the guards, the SS guards that guarded the concentration camps and the death camps. And part of my defenses was like, look, if it was a swastika or the SS or the Iron Eagle or the Iron Cross, there's a whole bunch of Nazi symbols that, are pretty obvious Nazi symbols. A skull and crossbone wouldn't be that obvious. Well, I was wrong there too. Wrong. Because it turns out this Totenkopf, somebody online had put together a montage of various movies like Inglourious Bastards and other World War II movies, very famous ones. Private Ryan, I guess, whatever. I don't know if that was one of them. But anyway, a whole bunch of stills from World War II movies of Nazi SS guards, and boom, yeah, there it is. In fact, the Totenkopf skull is prominent, is a prominent part of the joke from this sketch that's from long ago called Are We the Baddies? Was it Kids in the Hall? I don't know which group did it. Anyway, some sketch comedy group did it, where a Nazi comes to the realization, hey, we've got skulls on our caps. Are we the bad guys? And it was the Totenkopf skull. So, revealed my ignorance, because I'd never seen that. I think maybe if I'd ever seen that Totenkopf skull in my life, it might have been on a biker's jacket or as a ring or something, but I never knew that was a Nazi symbol. I had no idea. So was very wrong about that. So then you get to the point where like, all right, so the guy got a Nazi skull tattoo when he was in his 20s as a drunk Marine in Eastern Europe. Okay, that's one thing. But then you go and run for Senate still having this tattoo. Now he claimed like, oh, well, I didn't know it was a Nazi tattoo and nobody told me, blah, blah, blah. And I'd gone through the Army and Army National Guard and all the physicals where I had to have my shirt off. And it's against the regulations, military regulations, to have hate tattoos. And nobody ever stopped me. Nobody saw that tattoo in the Army and my physicals or anything, or ever said that it was a hate tattoo. Now, yeah, okay, now we're kind of stretching the bounds of credulity. So, like, I can get the drunk thing, getting the tattoo and everything, right? I have some tattoos, right? And the first tattoos I got were on my calves, and they're the Chinese characters for great hemp. The left one is great, and the right one is hemp. Do you know how much research I did to make absolutely sure that's what those things said? That I was going to be putting forever on my calves that people would see? Yeah, I did a whole lot of research on that. Look, and I found actual Chinese speakers. People who spoke Chinese. Hey, what does this say? They say, oh, it says Tai Ma. I'm like, okay, good. It's what it's supposed to say. Although when people ask what it says, read Chinese. My little joke. But anyway, so I did a lot of research getting that tattoo, and I would think if you had that tattoo over the next 20 years, you might start maybe seeing it elsewhere or looking into it or investigating what it meant. And then more tweets come out later on throughout this saga of people who were friends or acquaintances that say, oh yeah, throughout the years he's often called it my Totenkopf. Like he knew exactly what it was. Okay, now you're losing me. Now you're losing me, because now you're knowing that you have something associated with the Third Reich on your body, and and you're not getting it immediately removed? Like, what the hell, man? And the fact that this comes out and he thinks he's going to go out on some podcast and show the video of it and then explain that he was just did it when he was some drunk guy. Well, that just shows a failure of public relations. The only way that you display that tattoo is from the chair of a tattoo artist where you're holding a press conference getting that tattoo covered. Like, you don't bring it out and say, yeah, I got this terrible Nazi thing on my body. All right, see you later. Like, no. The minute you find you have a Nazi thing on your body, the first thing you do is get that Nazi thing off your body immediately. So he has now got it covered. And this was the final nail in the coffin for me. He does get it covered. So what does he cover it with? You know, all sorts of things you could cover it with. A peace sign, a butterfly, a dragon, anything. He covers it with the Norse wolf that eats the world at Ragnarok, the Norse Armageddon. Like, it's kind of got a little bit of white supremacy Nordic thing going in it, you know? Like, you know, if I was covering a Nazi tattoo, I'd want to get away from Norse, Nordic, white, end of the world, Armageddon type of themes, probably. So yeah, I don't know this guy's necessarily a racist or a Nazi, but he's not got enough sense to be able to get that stuff taken care of before beginning to run for the United States Senate, your first ever elected position. You want to jump from oyster fisherman to Senate. You want to stop along the way for state Senate, mayor. That might have outed you as having a Nazi tattoo before going up to a Senate race that we absolutely have to win. And now you put us in a position where we have to support someone who's going to make Susan Collins look young. I'm sorry, Graham Platner. You are done here at the Radical Russ Show. And I don't know, it's still a long way before the primary even in the state of Maine. Maybe someone else can rise up. Maybe someone born after 1960 so that we don't have to get behind Janet Mills. Again, I worry about someone who's so beholden to the filibuster and someone who's going to make Susan Collins look young. Although, by all accounts, Janet Mills has it going on. She's fully in control of her faculties. Something we cannot say about the delegate from the District of Columbia, Eleanor Holmes Norton, who has had a wonderful career. But she just recently was in trouble, helped out by the police, being scammed like, you know, the elderly get scammed. She was apparently scammed out about $4,400. And the people responding said that she showed the signs of early onset dementia. She's 88 years old, and she's running for re-election again. Democrats, please, 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 I beg of you, find some younger candidates. Now time to turn to my right and take a look at what's happening with the Republicans in this country, and it's, well, nothing, because they've got the government shut down. Been shut down for 20 some odd days, almost 30 days now, approaching longest government shutdown ever, and the other two longest were also under Trump. We've got MAGA Mike Johnson just refusing to call the House into session in order to delay the swearing in of Adelita Grijalva, in order to delay the 218th vote on releasing the Epstein files. So we can clearly call this the Epstein shutdown, and it highlights something that ever since the election of Barack Obama, we need to really take a look at, and that is how much of this government is run by norms and honor and good faith. Trump has definitely exposed all of that. I mean, who would have thought that the government could be shut down just simply because one man, Speaker of the House, decides not to put it into session? How is that possible? I mean, you'd think the founding fathers would have thought ahead to something like that, right? That the speaker could just not call the House into session? Well, they'd say, well, they swore oaths. They swore oaths to faithfully execute the laws of the United States of America. Yes, they did. And the punishment for breaking that oath is right. So, yeah, they can just not open the government. Just like when Obama was president, how the Senate Majority Leader can just decide not to have a hearing for a Supreme Court nominee. They can just decide not to do the job. Or how nowadays the president can just decide not to spend money. Congress appropriated money for something, but they can just decide not to spend it or decide to spend it on something else. Hell, the rules just don't apply anymore. So if, and this is definitely an if these days, the Democrats ever do come back into power, gain trifecta control over this government, how about closing some of these loopholes? How about setting up some teeth to some of these laws that are just blatantly being violated, like the Hatch Act? Like, we've got Kristi Noem putting her Botox-fillered face all over TSA videos in our airports, blaming the Democrats for the shutdown of the government that the Republicans 100% control. But there's no punishment for these Hatch Act violations. There's no holding people to account. And I really believe that a large percentage of the reason why Joe Biden was elected and why the Democrats lost in 2024 is because so many of us recognize this from Trump 1. So many of us saw the abuse of our government, the abuse and ignoring of our Constitution, that the number one reason I believe we had reelected Joe Biden was to hold Trump accountable, for there to finally be some consequences in this country for Republican lawbreakers. I've lived through seeing Nixon get away with it, Reagan get away with it, George H.W. Bush get away with it, George W. Bush get away with it, and Trump get away with it. If we are to make it through the other side of this and get Democratic control again, Trump cannot get away with it again. Or any of his lackeys, these Stephen Millers and Kristi Noems and Russ Vought's, the people really in charge, can't be allowed to get away with it again. If Joe Biden and Merrick Garland had moved on day one, January 20th, 2025, or 2021, excuse me, and gone and put Donald Trump in handcuffs, let him off to holding while we drew up charges for treason and insurrection. We know how that turned out. Joe Biden was the avatar of normalcy. This was the mistake the Democrats made in 2020. Because the people were ready for a populist uprising. There was massive support behind Bernie Sanders, and I know some people have their problems with Bernie. I'm starting to have a few of them too. But one thing he definitely did was accurately diagnose what the American people are hungry for and what this American government needs. Progressive leadership that holds criminals to account. But so afraid of that were the Democratic centrists and the establishment. Jim Clyburn got them all together in 2020, made sure they all dropped out and got behind Joe Biden. Mr. Normalcy, Mr. Norms, Mr. Tradition. And Joe Biden, given that his long time in the Senate and his love of the institutions, didn't have the right mindset to be a reformer. He called to a people that wanted to return to normalcy. Let's go back to old Joe. He's the devil we know. We know what we're getting with Joe. And indeed, we got some great legislation, Chips and Sciences Act, Inflation Reduction Act, Bipartisan Infrastructure Act, none of which had the word Biden or Democratic attached to it. Again, old school. Biden thought, hey, I'll come out here and I'll govern in the center. I'll make government work. And, you know, I should be a little more fair than that. He didn't really govern from the center. He was rather progressive. I mean, from a Joe Biden perspective. And he had trans people in office, and, you know, he was good about, you know, establishing Juneteenth. He did a lot of good things. But his basic mindset was one of, let's return to normalcy. Let's get back to the way things were. And for so many people in America, the way things were was not working. So after we got over getting rid of Trump, after getting Trump out of office and everybody breathed a sigh of relief, things went back to normal. Instead of prosecuting the coup, prosecuting the fascists. Oh, sure, we got the low-level ones. We got some of the low-level ones that were swinging flagpoles at the cops and smearing shit on the walls. We got them put away for a couple years till Trump got reelected and pardoned all of them. It's another thing we ought to take a look at. This pardon power. There's so many things about our Constitution. We revere the founding fathers as being these great geniuses, and yet there's so much they didn't see. They didn't see a House Speaker not calling the House into session. They didn't see a Senate Majority Leader not holding hearings for a Supreme Court nominee. They didn't see a president using the power of the pardon as a bribery machine. And one other thing I think we ought to take a look at if we ever get back into trifecta power, the power of citizen recall. Just about every state has this power where if you got a city councilor, a county commissioner, a governor, state senator, who you want to get out of office, who betrayed the voters, who did a bait and switch like a Kirsten Sinema or a John Fetterman, there's a mechanism for the people to put together a petition to get a recall on the ballot, to hold a special election to boot their ass out. How did the founding fathers drop the ball on that one? Why is there no recall mechanism for the citizens to be able to take out a senator, a representative, a Supreme Court justice, or a president who is betraying the people? The founders thought they were all so brilliant, coming up with a system of checks and balances where the Senate would jealously guard its power, and the House would jealously guard its power, and the president would guard his power, and the courts would guard their power, and couldn't think ahead to a time of hyper-partisanship where one party completely in control would cede their power to the head of that party. The House would roll over, the Senate would roll over, the Supreme Court would be supplicant. They couldn't foresee that and give the citizenry an emergency escape hatch to be able to get out of such a situation. Nope, you got to wait till the midterms. If y'all make a terrible, terrible mistake, you have to live with it for at least 2 years. You have to bring your defective Congress to term. No abortion. Founding fathers were pro-life when it comes to the terms of senators, representatives, and presidents, I guess. Now we're going to take a weird detour for this show and do a sports segment. That's right. But it's not really about sports. It's really about sports gambling. You may have heard the news about NBA players and coaches being arrested in the FBI gambling sting. And boy, it's kind of tough for me because my disdain and disrespect for Kash Patel's FBI is running headlong into the obviousness that there would be shock, scandal around gambling in the NBA, NFL, any of these sports that have so embraced online sports gambling. Like, duh! We didn't think any of this would happen, huh? So let me give you some of the details from this, because it's quite amazing, right? It includes Chauncey Billups, who's the coach of the Portland Trail Blazers. Now, my brother Josh has an interesting theory that Damian Lillard left the Trail Blazers, where Damian Lillard is so Portland. Like, he is one and the same. Damian Lillard is as much Portland as Larry Bird is Boston, right? Like, they're just associated. And he's got like a car dealership in town. He's got all these neighborhood things that he sets up in Portland, right? So for Damian Lillard to have left Portland a couple years ago to go to Milwaukee was kind of shocking. Maybe he knew something was up. Maybe he wanted to get away from Chauncey Billups and the shady stuff that was going on. And then he came back this year because he knew the FBI had enough information to take him down. That's my brother Josh's theory. I think it's kind of a good theory. But anyway, Chauncey Billups, the coach of the Blazers, and Terry Rozier, who's a player for the Miami Heat, I believe. And this is an indictment that is illegal gambling and sports rigging operation that spanned years across 11 states, 30 individuals arrested, 13 of them members of the mafia, La Cosa Nostra, the Italian mafia. Charges include illegal gambling, wire fraud, and extortion. There are two separate indictments. So there's one that's the basketball one, and there's one that's the poker one. But there are some overlapping defendants. So first of all, the first one is 6 defendants accused of participating in a sports corruption scheme that exploited insider information involving NBA players and teams. The defendants leveraged their connections to place prop bets based on confidential insider information, winning tens of thousands of dollars per bet. The second indictment involves 31 defendants charged with participating in a nationwide scheme to rig illegal poker games. The FBI says they used high-tech cheating technology to steal millions of dollars from victims in underground poker games that were secretly fixed. So, let's get down to the details on some of this. First of all, the FBI says that the player, Terry Rozier, how he did this was he told some of the other defendants that he's going to leave a game early back on March 23rd, 2023. He'll leave a game early with an injury. So, the defendants then placed $200,000 worth of bets on the unders for Terry Rozier. Now, you have to understand a little bit how this online sports gambling works, right? This is no longer the days of, I'm going to bet $100 that the Las Vegas Raiders beat the spread. Or I'm going to bet $100 the Las Vegas Raiders win outright. Those are just your regular old bets. But now they have prop bets, which is short for proposition bets. And proposition bets can be anything. Hell, they have prop bets on what the result of the coin flip at the Super Bowl will be. So, a certain type of prop bet is to bet over and under on what a player's particular stats are. Like Terry Rozier might be expected to score 12 points and get 3 rebounds and do 5 assists, right? So that could be his over-under line, right? And you could say, well, I bet he's going to score more than 10 points. Or I bet he's going to get fewer than 3 rebounds. So, Terry Rozier tells these guys, hey, I'm going to leave the game early. So they go and say, oh, well, if he's going to leave the game early, of course he's not going to score his 12 points and get his 3 rebounds and his 5 assists. So I'll bet the under on all of those things. And then those bets paid out tens of thousands of dollars in profits to the defendants and to Rozier. And as soon as I understood what prop bets were on these online sports gambling things, like, well, no shit, there's going to be corruption in that. Like, if I can bet on whether a player is going to miss his first free throw, how hard is it for me to convince that player, hey, miss your first free throw and I'll share the profits with you on the bet? The player can easily convince himself, he can rationalize that away. Oh, it's just one free throw. That's not going to affect the whole game. That's no big deal. Of course there's going to be corruption in a situation like that. So that's the sports, that's the basketball part of it, right? Is fixing these prop bets, getting insider information. That's a hell of a story. But this poker stuff, oh my God. So, the rigged poker games, they occurred in the Hamptons, Miami, Las Vegas, and Manhattan. So, high dollar value areas, right? And they lured people in. They lured the suckers into the games by giving them the chance to play alongside former professional athletes, including Chauncey Billups and Damon Jones. So, you can go to this poker game and play with these athletes. Oh, boy. So you get to the poker game, and the defendants utilized altered shuffling machines to read the cards in the deck and then relayed that information to an off-site operator known as the quarterback, who then sent the information back to someone at the table. Wow! So you've seen those little mechanical card shuffling machines, right? This one read the shuffle. Like, after it shuffled, it could tell you, okay, the first card's going to be an ace of spades, and the next card's going to be a two of clubs, and the next card's going to be a three of diamonds. Like, it knew all the order of the cards. So, yeah, that you give me that information, I know whether or not to draw, whether or not to fold, of course. The FBI also says the defendants utilized other cheating technologies, including poker chip trays that read cards through hidden cameras, special contact lenses and glasses that could read marked cards, and X-ray poker tables that could read the cards face down. Jeez, this is like James Bond level shit. Mr. Bond, here are your special glasses. My God. And to get the rigged shuffling machine, they say they robbed a guy at gunpoint to get that. So the sports gambling one, the basketball fixing one, that's called Operation Nothing But Net. And the poker investigation is called Operation Royal Flush. The FBI has been working on this investigation for 4 years, with victims losing at least $7 million. One specific victim lost at least $1.8 million. And it's been fun watching all of the sports networks have to report on this, ESPN and the like, or NBA.com. Oh, this terrible sports gambling, terrible thing. And now, a message from FanDuel. A message from DraftKings. The leagues have gotten so in bed with online gambling that they can't live without it now. So some people are saying this is kind of inevitable and that we should never have legalized sports gambling. And I'm of two minds of this. For one, I worked in drug prohibition for a long time, trying to fight drug prohibition. We often talked about how prohibition just makes things worse. No matter what drug it is and how bad you think that drug is, prohibition just gives control over it to the criminal element. So a similar argument can be made for sports gambling. Back in the day, before online sports betting, there was the mob running the numbers. But and with the mob running the numbers, there was a kind of a social stigma to it, so people couldn't get as involved in sports gambling. It was seen as kind of shady to do so. But now it's ubiquitous, and from all reports that I'm reading, lots of young men are getting into it and getting into trouble with it and getting into major debt with it. So does that argue that it should still be illegal? I don't think so. I think sports gambling should still be legal, but I do think we ought to regulate it a little tighter, that there ought not be things like these individual prop bets where one person can be corrupted. Like, it's one thing to try to corrupt the whole team to throw the World Series, like the Chicago Black Sox from 1919. That's one thing, to try to corrupt a whole team. But when you got a prop bet on whether one player is going to hit certain numbers and that one player can be corrupted, I don't know about that. And the other side of the argument is, in drug control, sometimes, the opponents will say, oh, they caught 50,000 tons of fentanyl at the border. All this fentanyl come across the border. But yeah, well, you caught it though, didn't you? You caught the 50,000 tons. And so the idea here is that we caught these guys in this sports gambling scandal. And part of how they caught them is math. Because when there's this massive amount of sports gambling going on, any one bettor doesn't make much difference in the numbers, but in aggregate, you can see that there's certain averages you're going to hit, certain metrics you're going to hit. So when all of a sudden a whole bunch of money shows up to bet the under on one particular player on just that day, that is a big statistical red flag that then regulators can go after. Regulators can notice that that's happening. In the old school world of sports gambling, it was just all illegal. So there was no way of rooting out the real scams going on from the actual, even though it was illegal, fair gambling that was going on. With it being illegal, you couldn't complain to the authorities. You couldn't get the FBI on your side to investigate it because you'd be admitting to a crime yourself and getting yourself arrested. So I think on the whole, it's probably better that sports gambling is legal. I don't know that it should be so ingrained into the sports leagues themselves. Like perhaps they should not be able to take advertising from the sports gambling sites. That perhaps there needs to be stricter advertising controls, maybe regulations as to what types of bets can be made. But generally speaking, I think we're better off with legal gambling than illegal gambling. All right, that country baseline means it's time for our Boycott Idaho segment where I explain to you all the reasons why you should avoid the handmaid state. Now up to 76 reasons that you can find cataloged at radicalruss.com/Idaho. And today for the Boycott Idaho segment, a really strange segment because we're going to talk about the police chief of Millbrae, California. Millbrae, California, a man named Eamon Allen. He's the police chief there in Millbrae, which is in San Mateo, California, just south of San Francisco on the west side of the Bay. So little community there, and he's the police chief. So what does this have to do with Idaho? Well, turns out that the fire inspector there went to the San Mateo County Police Department and found he couldn't get into a certain room because it was locked. And there was a sign that said in use, and he tried going around that and find out what's going on. And turns out the police chief had built himself a little bedroom in the San Mateo, or in the Millbrae Police Department. Little twin bed, little desk and a chair. And when the local news heard about this, they started doing some digging, and they find out that this Eamon Allen has no residence in San Mateo County or in Millbrae, anywhere near the Bay Area of San Francisco. No, he bought a house in Boise, Idaho. And on the weekends, he is commuting from the Bay Area to Boise to live in his house. So this is a little bit of a problem because Millbrae's code of ethics say, quote, no public employee shall use city-owned property for personal need, convenience, or profit. According to the San Mateo County Board of Supervisors President David Canepa, he said, quote, if someone is living out of county or out of state, they have to pay for their own lodging, meaning San Mateo County is not a Holiday Inn. End quote. He said he had no problem supplying beds for officers who might work a night shift and have court the next day, right? Pull out a cot and sleep overnight. But there's a pretty big difference between that and sleeping all week at the station and taking your weekends off and either driving the 10.5 hours it takes to get to Boise. And I know that route. I've driven it. You drive out from San Francisco up to Reno, up through Nevada, up through Winnemucca, and then into Boise, and it is a desolate, desolate drive. Or he could be flying, and I looked it up. There are 5 nonstop flights from Boise to San Francisco, or vice versa, 5 per day. The flight takes a little under 2 hours, an hour and 50 minutes, plus you got your time of getting into the airport and security and all that kind of stuff. So probably we're talking, 3 3.5, 4 hours out of the guy's day here. And accordingly, the folks in San Mateo County and Millbrae, California, are not too happy about this because they're supposed to be able to respond to disasters, to crimes, and a lot of the supervisors there are saying that's a little bit impossible if you're living in Boise, Idaho. Not being able to return on short notice in the event of an emergency is ridiculous, said former San Francisco Police Department Commander Richard Correa to the ABC 7 News team there in San Francisco. Correa also said a police chief needs to be able to respond quickly to high-profile crime, earthquake, or some other disaster, and that there's no substitute for hands-on and eyes-on experience 7 days a week. Quote, "You'd want a police chief that's a stakeholder in the community and able to experience the community at a granular level to really understand it and know what's going on, and also to be present on short notice," end quote. And the fire marshal also noted that the little bedroom he built in the police headquarters there doesn't have a secondary egress, no window or secondary exit, so it's violating fire codes as well. And this is not the only case where we've got California cops living out of state in Idaho. They found 6 sergeants in the San Mateo Sheriff's Office who live out of state in Idaho, Nevada, Texas, and Tennessee. 2 of them work on the bomb squad, where they made about $600,000 in pay and benefits. They're supposed to be able to respond to a bomb threat within 1 hour. No way that happens if they're living in Tennessee. So what is it that all those states have in common? Did you notice? Idaho, Nevada, Texas, Tennessee, all very red states. Bay Area, California cops who hate living in the Bay Area so badly and hate living in California so badly, they have to commute hours in airplane flights from red states. It's time that we start holding these cops to better account and requiring that they live within at least an hour's drive of the places they're policing. Today in the Radical Rant, I want to talk about us being one nation under God. And it comes to my attention by way of a post on Blue Sky from Jamie Delaney L., who writes, "I've been called for jury duty 4 times. The first time, I was mistakenly called to duty in a county I no longer lived in. Last time, I asked to be excused because I had upcoming surgery. The 2 times in between, I was immediately released when I asked to be affirmed rather than swear on a Bible. So here is yet another example why In God We Trust and One Nation Under God is not only un-American, but One Nation Under God was bound to become fascist. There should be no Bible or God in our courtrooms, because as we see here, the atheist or person who does not wish to swear on a Bible, who asks for an accommodation, an alternative, is kept off a jury. This is a religious test in our justice system, contrary to everything that this nation was founded upon. Why do we swear to God in a courtroom? Why do we swear an oath on Christianity's holy book for our officers to be sworn in to their offices? Or for us to swear that we'll tell the truth? And this idea, well, you don't have to, you can always affirm. And like we see, this person who affirmed gets treated differently, loses their right to serve on a jury. How many juries are bereft of anyone who is atheist or lacking in people who are Muslim or other religions that might take offense or wish to swear on some other book or not swear to any book at all? Yes, yet another way that this Christian nationalism is baked in to this country. One nation under God was bound to become fascist because you can't subpoena God. You cannot call God to testify. So someone has to speak for God, and that's where we end up in this hierarchical, patriarchal, nationalist, fascistic Christian theocracy that we're barreling toward at breakneck speed. It wasn't always like this, folks. Our original motto in this country is E pluribus unum. That's Latin, and it means from many, one. From 13 colonies to one nation. From many immigrant countries to one people. From many languages, religions, cultures, one people. E pluribus unum. It is so beautiful. And what this country was founded upon, this idea that we are all Americans based on a shared belief that being governed could only be through the consent of the governed, that power could only be wielded if the people deem it necessary and proper and right. Not some king, not some oligarch, not some family, not whoever's got the most guns and muscle, that we all collectively, regardless of our religion, our race, our creed, our ethnicity, our nationality, our ability, regardless of any of those factors, we all had an equal voice in determining how we should all be governed, how we should all live. But then in the 50s, we had the Red Scare. How familiar it all seems nowadays. Terrible, evil agents in our government, communists, gonna make us communist. And in that Red Scare, to make sure that we had to differentiate ourselves from the godless heathen communists, we were pressured to change our national motto to "In God We Trust." No longer E pluribus unum. It's not all about us all coming together to be one anymore under a shared constitution, a shared secular constitution within which it says no religious tests shall issue, whose First Amendment says there shall be no respecting of an establishment of religion. We threw that all out the doors in the 1950s and decided it was one nation under God. All us people, all subservient to God, all under God. Well, what does God have to say? What does God think we should do with our social safety net? Here I look in this Bible that allegedly he wrote. It says that we ought to feed the hungry. We ought to clothe the naked. We ought to heal the sick. So I guess our budget now will be going a lot toward a social safety net. Oh, no. That's not what God says. I don't know what book they've been reading. But we can't subpoena God. We can't ask God what he meant. We can't ask God, under whom this entire nation is supposed to reside, how this nation should act. Instead, we're supposed to believe what holy men tell us God said. You know, the Joel Osteens of the world with their $16 million parsonages. We're supposed to, from them, these men, we're supposed to tell us what God wants. This is why America needs to be a secular nation. As a secular nation, all religions can get along. But if one religion is supreme, if Christianity is supreme, then all other religions are second-class citizens, as this post points out. Here's someone who is immediately dismissed from jury duty for picking the alternative to swearing on a Bible. This is why it should be offensive. Offensive to broadcast your religion. I think it says so in their little book, too. Something Matthew chapter 6 about praying in a closet. There's a certain commandment about taking the Lord's name in vain, and that doesn't mean saying, God damn it. That means saying God wills it for something that you want. So, we need to get back to e pluribus unum if we want to have any hope of saving this country. And this is where I find Democrats often fail. Yes, there can be religion that is a part of our movement. For God's sake, of course, Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, the Civil Rights Movement, many people of faith, clergy members were instrumental in that. But they were instrumental toward a secular end, not toward putting their God in charge. They were toward doing God's work by helping people, healing people, feeding people. But if we could have a secular nation, if we get back to e pluribus unum and remove references to God and invocations of God within our government, then everybody who has a God or does not can be equal. Why have people swear on the Bible? Now, they can choose to. That ought to be the alternative. The alternative ought to be, there ought to be an oath that goes, do you hereby affirm under our Constitution that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Everybody can swear that oath. Do you affirm under our Constitution? Now, if someone wants to add a Bible to that, have a Bible for them to put their hands on while they do that, in addition to a copy of the Constitution, great. That's fine. Bring in your Torah, bring in your Quran, bring in your Book of Mormon. Swear on that as well, if you like. But the idea that you go into a court of law or into one of our government offices and the oath you swear is not to our Constitution. You're swearing an oath to the Constitution, but you're putting your hand on the Bible while doing that, and that's the default, sends the signal that Christianity is supreme in this nation. Get God out of our government. Only then can we truly be the land of the free, where all men are created equal. The Radical Russ Show is produced, directed, researched, written, recited, posted, and catered by me, Radical Russ Belville, and governed by Creative Commons Share-alike licensing. News clips and social media posts are reproduced under fair use copyright laws for commentary and analysis. My main theme is We Love the Herb by Herbal Nation. Interstitial music is by me, my bass, and my drum machine. Which brings us to our post-credits scene. So I saw that Bad Bunny, who is going to be performing at Super Bowl 60 for the halftime, Bad Bunny, the Puerto Rican rapper reggaeton star, was on the Billboard Latin Music Awards, got a bunch of awards, including Top Latin Artist of the 21st Century. Really? We're just a quarter of the way into it, you know. What, like the next 2 generations of Latin music performers ought to just forget about being the best of the century because Bad Bunny already sewed it up in the first 25 years? Doesn't that seem a little premature? I saw this funny little story coming out of Portland, where the Portland Democratic Socialists had to issue an apology over the inadvertent exclusion of a reporter from the Jewish Federation of Portland and Jewish Review. It was an event that took place on Friday, October 17th. Portland DSA explains that the exclusion was not intentional. They were doing an event related to Palestine, and those events are often disrupted by trolls. So the volunteers who are running the tech, who were making quick decisions to try to mitigate potential disruptions and distractions, according to Portland DSA, mistakenly identified the Jewish Review writer as using a fake name. And when the moderators realized the error, they sent a recording of the press conference to the writer from the Jewish Review. Portland City Councils had nothing to do with it. It was just the tech administration. And they regret that Others tried to use the exclusion of the Jewish Review writer as some sort of fodder for political dirt. The name of the Jewish Review writer whom the moderators thought was using a fake name? Rockne Roll. Put another dime in the jukebox, baby. And of course, we have our household football update, where we compare my prep college and pro teams to my Lady Love Lori's and my Nampa High School Bulldogs' terrible season. They're 1-8 now with another loss, 17-27 at Vallivue. Madison-Grant has fallen to an even record of 5-5, losing in the playoffs at South Adams 45-28. Meanwhile, Boise State goes to 6-2 with a win 24-3 at Nevada, and her number 6 Oregon Ducks go to 7-1 with a win 21-7 against Wisconsin at Autzen Stadium. And the best football win of the week, last night's Sunday night football game, where my beloved 13-time world champion Green Bay Packers win 35-25 at Pittsburgh, which is doubly joyful for me, not just because we sacked and beat our former quarterback Aaron Rodgers, but also because the Pittsburgh Steelers are my Lady Love's ex-husband's team. Ooh, I love this win. And speaking of my Lady Love, her Indianapolis Colts still riding high, 7-1 in the league, with another win, 38-14 at Tennessee. For the season, that puts me finally at a winning record, combined 12-11-1, while Lori's combined record is 19-7, still kicking my butt. You can contact me by email at radicalruss@gmail.com. Call my message line at 877-RUSS-420. That's 877-877-420. And reach me on social media on Blue Sky as @radicalruss.com and nowhere else. You can support this podcast financially by donating to Radical Russ on Venmo, Rad Russ on Cash App, or via PayPal on my website at radicalruss.com. Get this podcast on Spotify, Apple Music, my website, or wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks for listening, and until next week, take care of each other.
You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you